Hi, my name is Emma Hendricks, and my topic is steroid usage in sports, the reality behind doping. Okay, so the first article I chose was actually a documentary called The Redeemed and Dominant, Fittest on Earth, directed by Heber Cannon. And in that documentary, it talked about a scandal that occurred, the scandal of Ricky Garard. He placed third at the CrossFit Games. And it was this big, huge deal because he was really young, he was a rookie, and he'd done really well. And all of the podium finishers have to get tested afterwards to see if they were doping, and it turns out he tested positive for steroids. So he lost his third place, and it went to the guy below him. And a lot of the athletes who competed at the 2017 Games came out and stated their opinions on Ricky Garard and doping in professional sports and the CrossFit Games. And one of the biggest athletes who actually is fittest man on earth, according to the CrossFit Games, Matthew Frazier, came out and talked about Ricky Garard and how he doesn't think that you should cheat to win. And a lot of the other athletes, like Tia Toomey and Sarah Sigmund's daughter, came out and said that if you want to look good, then go ahead and do steroids, but as long as you're competing in a professional sport, it needs to be a fair ground, and you're taking away the integrity of the sport if you are trying to dope and be using. And another one of the athletes, Katrin Davis' daughter, came out and talked about how she thinks that to define CrossFit is hard work and pushing your body to the limit. And when you're using, you're not growing, your body isn't growing naturally, so it's not CrossFit. Like, that's a whole different thing. And so she's one of those that thinks that using steroids is stupid in CrossFit and you shouldn't have to cheat to win. So the next article that I chose is called Steroid Side Effects by Sheila Wong. And I think this video will cover pretty much everything that was talked about in the article.
Anabolic steroids quickly throw our hormone systems off balance, leading to unintended side effects. Changes in hormone levels and fast muscle growth can lead to stretch marks. Tendons and their attachment points can't keep up with muscle growth, which can result in damages and scar tissue to both tendons and muscles. Rapid muscle growth can also lead to cramping and intense muscle pain. Oil glands in the skin are also stimulated, leading to excess oil production and large, painful pimples. When adolescents use anabolic steroids in puberty, growth can be disturbed, with a serious risk for premature closing of skeletal growth zones. The result can be that adolescents' adult height is reduced by 5 to 10 centimeters. Use of anabolic steroids can also lead to salt and fluid retention, which is a risk factor for high blood pressure. High-intensity strength training, in combination with high blood pressure, puts pressure on the heart. Since the heart is a muscle, steroid use can also make the heart itself grow. This can be particularly problematic for the left chamber, which pumps blood out into the body. The heart's walls can also become thicker and tougher, which impacts the heart's ability to pump. Over time, this can lead to heart failure. We also know that steroids impact levels of cholesterol in the blood. Levels of good HDL cholesterol, responsible for transporting fat from tissues to the liver, are reduced, which can result in atherosclerosis and thereafter an increased risk for cardiovascular disease. Anabolic steroids can also be poisonous to liver cells because the liver can't properly break them down. The kidneys are also impacted when the hormone EPO is stimulated. This hormone impacts the production of red blood cells in bone marrow, which can lead to blood clots. These are some of the negative effects that male and female steroid users can experience. In addition, there are a range of sex-specific effects illustrated in another video. Anabolic steroids have individual effects and therefore different symptom profiles. Some report side effects quickly, while others experience few or only after longer periods of use. These variations depend on the type and dose of steroid used, genetic differences, and age of first use. In Norway, the Specialist Health Service, providing substance use disorder treatment, is responsible for this patient group and coordinating necessary health services. Want more information?
Okay, so my next article is called Why Steroids Have No Place in Sports, by April Ashby. And she first starts out about talking about how steroids take away the integrity of sports and how sports are truly about who is the best of the best on what they're given genetically or how they've trained and who they've been coached by and who they've been around, like their teammates or like just friends and family in general, instead of what they're unnaturally taking into their body. And then that leads into how doping gives athletes and non-dopers an unfair advantage to those who choose to dope, because if hypothetically steroids were allowed, then those who choose not to dope or medically can't because maybe they have heart issues or liver issues and they really can't, or they could die. It's really unfair to those people who can't, who are competing against those people who have that access to doping and steroids. And even now, same kind of thing, which then leads into what she calls a slippery slope. For legal reasons, if they did allow it, what limitations would they allow? It's so much easier just to say no steroids instead of, oh, maybe we could allow this medically prescribed steroid. Or, oh, we can allow all of them, or which certain ones we can and can't. It's just so much to figure out and limit. And then to contradict the last article, my next article, Why It's Time to Legalize Steroids in Professional Sports by Chris Smith, goes on to talk about how the kind of almost refs and overseers of sports spend too much time trying to catch dopers instead of actually doing their job and actually making sports a business and more entertainment, which, going on the business side, he says if people could dope, it would make sports a lot more entertaining because you'd be seeing like freak athletes instead of seeing what you can do with just training. It's more for entertainment instead of being a sport. Okay, and then my next article, I guess you could say, is an interview with Charles Barkley, who was a very famous NBA basketball player who is now retired and does a lot of other things, but the article is called Sports and HIG in Steroids and HIG in Sports. And it talks about the different views of doping by the athletes in the NBA now versus when Barkley was there and a part of it. He says that doping really, they knew who was doing it, but they didn't care enough to actually turn them in. It wasn't that big of a deal. And now it's a lot more prominent, so he thinks that it's just stupid to dope because you're most likely going to get caught. Because he said that if he knew about it, other athletes are going to know about it, and they'll have that almost kind of blackmail against you. And then he goes on to talk about the human growth hormone, also known as the HGH, in the NFL, and how if that is used in the NFL, a lot of people could get hurt. A lot of tackling and physical contact happens in football. So if that is enhanced, there would be a lot more injuries and it wouldn't end well for the athletes. In conclusion, I think that steroids should stay illegal. I agree with the CrossFit athletes and their thoughts on that and how it would take away a lot of what competing means, and it would take away a lot of hard work and training, and I feel like that's the biggest part of being an athlete. And I feel like in entertainment wise, I will look at an athlete and they're really good and they're not doping, I'm going to have so much more respect for them because they went through all the hard work and training, and that's a lot more impressive to me than doping. And be like, oh, of course they're going to be that good because they're using something that's not unnatural. So yeah, my name is Emma Hendricks and this is my presentation about steroids in professional sports.